many companies, and you could see also the approach of different type of companies. And I try to look at, kind of classify them where you would see different group of cultural behavior and approach. And I've put that in 4 categories. One being the legacy big corporates in Mauritius. And what happens there. Second, you've got the public sector. What happens there. You've got the family-owned businesses, small and medium, but more and more bigger companies now. And then, of course, the international companies, which would have a different approach to culture. But what got across, I think it's important to look at that, is the cultural background of Mauritius and where we come from, education we've had, but also the way we've been brought up by our parents and so on.
Thing was super. I'm sure this one will be just as great, if not bringing us in other reflections. So culture is often seen as an intangible, something that exists in organization but is difficult to measure. Yet research consistently shows that a strong company culture leads to higher engagement, better retention, and a stronger business performance. And I must say, through all the years I've worked in consulting in Mauritius, this year has been a milestone year in addressing culture, as it's on every agenda, in every boardroom, and in every HR agenda. But how do we align culture with business strategy? What are the dots we have to connect there? How do we ensure that corporate values, that's the thing we say all the time, are not just statements on the wall, right? How are those values executed, operationalized, real for people, lived? In this article, there's a nice article about how to create talent density from Josh Versin. I recommend Josh Versin to the audience. I know there's many of HR community here. It highlights that Netflix generates nearly $3 million in revenue per employee, which is twice that of Google and 10 times that of Disney. This impressive figure underscores Netflix's high talent density and efficient organizational structure. To discuss this and this connection between culture and business results, we have an incredible lineup of business leaders and HR experts who have first-hand experience in integrating culture in their business model today. So again, warm welcome to all the panelists. Okay, I'll start with the first question to Ravin, but I invite everyone to just step in whenever you would like to add something. So Ravin, can you elaborate on the key corporate cultures that exist in Mauritius? I think you have a way of seeing it. That's very interesting. And how they shape the labor market.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I think before I go into the kind of different corporate culture that we see, I think it's important to understand that very often we try to look at what's happening in the first world and believe that we should have exactly the same thing in other countries, including Mauritius. And I see that in many aspects, including sustainability. It's a different debate, but I think the first world driving some of the agenda, and we try to copy and paste in different countries. I'm not sure that's the answer. And why I make the point, I think it's important to understand the multicultural facet of Mauritian society. I think that's important in what we see in culture, in corporate culture. I think the second aspect we also need to look at is that we've got different sectors of the economy, which maybe requires different type of culture that we see. Culturally, you would expect in the tourism sector would be very different what you would expect in the banking sector. So I think that is important to accept, to understand, And then within those contexts, to make sure that we look at different sectors. My personal experience, for those who don't know me well, I've also worked for the public sector. So I've got a bit of an experience of what culture we see in the public sector. And being in the bank sector, you deal with many companies, and you could see also the approach of different type of companies. And I try to look at, kind of classify them of where you would see different group of cultural behavior and approach. And I've put that in 4 categories. One being the legacy big corporates in Mauritius. And what happens there. Second, you've got the public sector. What happens there. You've got the family-owned businesses, small and medium, but more and more bigger companies now. And then, of course, the international companies, which would have a different approach to culture. But what got across, I think it's important to look at that, is the cultural background of Mauritius and where we come from, education we've had, but also the way we've been brought up by our parents and so on. If I take the first group in terms of the legacy company in Mauritius, I think at a certain level, I would say performance seems to be the key area that motivates people, but also drives people, but also the way we measure progress in companies, much more of a performance-based culture. If you do well in what you asked to do, I think it is recognized, and people see that that's a motivation for them to grow. But I argue, and I believe it comes to a point within those legacy big corporates that we seem to have a glass ceiling more and more. I don't think when you look at the big corporates in Mauritius, and you look at the top management, including the board, that's a good reflection of the Mauritian society. I don't think it is. And I think it's important that companies that we have, that we work in, reflect society. And I think there has been research showing that at board level, at leadership level, diversity improves what we're trying to achieve from a purpose perspective. And I don't think we're there. I've heard the argument that we only recruit competent people. And that's an insult more than it could be a justification in my view, suggesting that there won't be competent people across society and different culture in Mauritius. So I think why I raised that, because the point around why culture is important, it's also about retention, it's about growth, it's about attracting talent and making sure people are aligned with the purpose of the company. But if people believe at a certain point I don't have a chance at a company, I'm not sure people are still aligned and engaged with the company, and that people deliver to that extent that is required from them. In the past, it's even more complicated. I don't know whether anybody has been fired in the past state or the public company by saying no. I think it's easier to say no in a public company, and that's the culture. If you go and take risk and try to make things happen, it could be whistleblower. There could be suggestion of favoritism. There could be suggestion that you are helping a potential bidder or a potential supplier. And people tend to then sit on the fence or look at issues rather than solutions. And that's a culture, unfortunately, that we're seeing more and more. And I don't think it's right, I don't think it's appropriate, and I think it's important that we relook at what success look like for an employee in the public sector. And if you compare the two, the tendency is to say that the bright and the more competent work for the private sector, and the less competent work for the public sector, which is absolute nonsense. You have some extremely bright people working for the public sector, absolutely bright people. Unfortunately, the culture sometimes make them keep their mind and brain at home. You don't need to bring that to the workplace because you tick box, you're doing your job, right? And there's no incentive for you to use your brain. The third category, I think the culture is a very much of a hierarchical culture. It's a culture of understanding what a family wants, what the family-owned business and what the family want, what they want to do, and trying to second guess sometimes and trying to align to that. But I think there has been progress made on that front as well. I've seen a number of family-owned companies trying to first get listed and then to make sure that the management team doesn't come from the family. And there's a proper management team that run the business in a very commercial and governance-based approach. But there are tendencies for family members sitting on the board then to get involved and to get asked questions that should be dealt with management. And very often then management second guess what the family wants and try to do that. And I'm not sure then how people grow in such an environment if there are intervention by the family. The fourth category, the international bank. At least two of us here on the panel works for international companies. A lot of governance, a lot of scorecards, lots of global standards, but then some of them are not applicable in this country. Some of them really hinders growth. Some of them really do not understand the realities in the country, and they want global standard to be applied in a local market. You know, one of the banks, Mojo, I think globally, locally. I've never seen them act locally. Well, I don't never see them act. I don't think they're allowed to act locally. We're not far from there, so. But anyway, I don't know what's about it. I think more and more now we're benchmarking ourselves with competition within a country and looking at what's happening. More and more, it's important for us now to really think and act locally, to have the right risk, right appetite to operate locally, and make sure that we stay competitive. But at the end, for a few things. First, you know, the talent war may be seen as a zero-sum game for a country. Because if it's leave ENL, go to Rogers, to somebody else. That was deliberate. But anyway, you've got the point. It might be seen as a zero-sum game. But I think more and more, we're losing, especially in the financial services industry, we are losing people to Luxembourg, losing people to Ireland. And that's what the zero-sum game. And those people, some of them you can't retain. You know, we've looked at some examples. If you ask a 24-year-old kid who is studying in Mauritius, who live with his parents all his life, and a chance to go and live alone in Luxembourg, who would say, right? And that's to understand. And that's not a bad thing. In the sense you want these people also to go and learn a different culture, different set of ways of working in a different country and come back eventually. But losing capable people because they don't see a future in Mauritius is a major issue. And it's not only a pay issue. It's not only it's a lot of culture issue, a lot of the way in which we work. It's a lot to do with leadership. It's a lot to do with saying, do I have a chance here? And do I really, am I valued in the organization I work for? So to kind of a long-winded answer to your question, I think the corporate culture is not yet seen as an important ingredient of what we do. If not, our education system would have been changed by now to ensure that soft skills is part of what is taught from day one when you go to school. Today, what we are taught is 1 + 1 = 2. Right? We're not taught how to engage with Spanish and not make stupid comment as I made just now. So I think the education system needs also to be important. Our performance management system is still based on what we deliver concretely, right? And the question is often asked: if somebody is a superstar in an organization, delivers the numbers day in, day out, but has very poor ethical and values-based behavior, what do? I've seen many managers fighting for people who delivers day in, day out, but has a very poor value-based system. And that's still happening in Mauritius. And I think there should come a point where there's no choice. This shouldn't be a debate. If you do not walk the ethical line, you don't have a place in the organization. And we're not there yet. And we should all agree that's the situation today. You know, a lot of people talk about harassment, sexual or otherwise. Is that tolerated in the workplace? I think it is still. Because some superstars in companies believe they're allowed to do anything, and nothing will happen to them. That's still happening. And talking about corporate culture, today, performance, financial performance is still the key, most important area of what measures success in company.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ravin, for this very, very interesting. I take away 2 points from what you said. We notice, being on the employer brand frontline, that sometimes, and more often than we thought we would see it, people want to work for the public sector, not the private sector. Why? Because there's a perception of a job offer for life when you work in the public sector. There's the influence of the parents as well. So I think it's very understated, the value of public sector attractivity as an employer. We tend to often focus on just the private. And the second takeaway is the culture of performance. I think if that's what we teach our kids from the time we put them at school, to be the first, then we get a culture where Mauritius, no matter what we do, will never be enough to make them stay. And the pressure of the families to, encourage. We see that a lot. When people go overseas and work overseas, the number one influencer is family. And we have to question ourselves in our families, why is that the case with the ecosystem we have today in this country, with all the international education we have? Thanks for raising those very, very interesting points. My next question is to Hélène. We go from culture of performance now to values and emotions and interesting things as well. So at CCARE, emotions and human-centric leadership are core elements of the culture. How do you balance this with the structural and strategic imperatives of the healthcare business?
Nancy, first, thank you for hosting me today. Very honored. Indeed, in the healthcare sector, people will join the healthcare sector because their DNA is caring. I would say to become a nurse, to become a doctor, you have made a choice, a fundamental choice. And the question is the culture of healthcare a culture of caring, or can it also be a culture of performance? And I think we are facing it because when you need to explain to a nurse, for example, that performance is important, where that person has chosen this job to touch, to be close to the patient, to have time with the patient, and then suddenly you will ask that person, please log into the ERP at what time you have put the drugs, and please make sure all the patient notes are up to date. It's kind of disconnecting with the reason why that person has chosen the job. So this is a reality, and we can't go away from the fact that digitalization and performance also is important in a caring environment like a hospital. So definitely quite a, I would say, challenging subject for us, how to instill our values, which needs to be around caring, but also around performance. Maybe at Sika also, what was interesting, I would say, is the history of the company. In fact, Sika exists since less than 6 years. We grew by acquisition. So first there was Downing, and then Walkin, and then we acquired a hospital in Uganda, and then we created another company, C-Lab, and we also acquired a business in Madagascar. To know who you are from a culture perspective, when you grow by acquisition is quite difficult, because you are what those business you have acquired are. And at the same time, you're not those business, because they are different in nature. And this is what we are trying to do now since 5 years. First, we had to put everyone under the same brand. So for the one who have experienced acquisition, when you need to change the brand of a business where people have been in that organization for years, it's very emotional. And then the second step is to define what do we want to be as Sika? What do we want to be in Mauritius? And what do we want to be in East Africa? And what may be true for our Mauritian colleagues may not be true for our Ugandan colleagues or Malagasy colleagues. So that's, I would say, a very interesting reflection we had, and we were working with you, by the way, and thank you. And then, even in Mauritius now, we have this second, I would say, reality is that half of our people, at least our nurses, are not Mauritian. So now, what is really the culture that touches them, that makes them be engaged within the organization? Because what is true maybe for the historical Mauritian organization is not true anymore. And I don't think there's a way of going back where this multicultural organization will change. That's the dynamic we are in. So what is really a culture that embraces all those different units we have acquired, plus all those different nationalities? So it's, I would say it's difficult, but it's really, really interesting to work along this journey. Something also, I would say, special in healthcare, in our geographies, is that you work with doctors. We have, for example, in Sika, 300 doctors. They are in our hospital almost every day. They talk to our patient, to our customers. I mean, a patient at the end is a customer. We need to take a stock of this. More than we do, because they talk more to our customers. They talk to our staff, our nurses, more than what we do, yet they are not our employees. Plus, they are liberal in nature. They have chosen to be a doctor, meaning that they have chosen to be a liberal type of work type. And this is, I would say, another complexity to how can you engage all those 300 doctors that not only they don't necessarily work only in your hospital, they may also go in another hospital, without them being an employee of your organization, but being a key stakeholder. And how do you sell the culture, or how do you imply them in the definition of what is the culture of Sika? So I would say today's all the different challenges we are facing, very interesting, and and we will, I was talking to the team, defining a culture takes years. For us, because we need to recreate what we want to be for the future, it will take another few years, and it's a very interesting and very long journey to do. Yeah.
Thank you, Hélène. Very interesting insights. My next question will go to Stéphane. You highlighted in our previous discussions how corporate values often sound repetitive, even generic. Every values in every business. We actually did some research. Apparently there's 10 values across the board in all businesses. So it couldn't be any truer than that. It cannot get any more true than that. So should companies be more transparent in their values by highlighting as much their challenges than their strengths?
Merci. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the question. Before, sorry, English is not my first language. I'll do my best. Please bear with me. I'll try. Before I try to get my message across, maybe I will give a little bit of background so you know what I'm trying to say. I have been in the branding industry. I was an entrepreneur and I created a small branding agency. Then moved as MD at dry cleaning services, industrial laundry, and recently moved to Access in the automotive industry. Obviously, what goes across all these three different areas and three different worlds is, well, people, obviously. But what I'm trying to do today is to find the similarities between all of these, and one of them is the values of each and every company, which when we shared, I said, when I see respect, integrity, and excellence as values, I mean, I feel a bit like in my previous world when some real estate agency came to me and tell me, well, create my identity, and I put a house as the logo, or an aquarium would come and I would put a shark. You get my point. I feel it's a bit déjà vu. So sorry, I just realized that maybe it could work the other way around. So for the real estate, the shark would work. Seeing at my little drawings there, it would probably be a little more creative. And with the other one would work. The aquarium would have the house for the voila. Anyway, you get my point. Why don't we have values like sweat and tears, sleepless nights, or sacrifice, which are actually reality? So yes, that's what I wanted to share. A few years ago, we could see it wouldn't be unusual to see an employee looking for a job that would come to an agency and say, look, can you design my CV, my resume, for it to be extraordinary and stand out of all the other CVs? Whereas today, we would see the employer going to an advertising agency saying, can you design my job advert? Because things have completely changed and it's a very different perspective. So what I'm trying to say here is we already know that what a brand is, and that we need to tell a story, and that we need to be true to ourselves, etc. I'm not going to say what has already been said and to which I completely adhere. And but we have to be true, and we have to rethink our values, which lead to the culture, etc. This is my message, and that was from the first world in branding. Then when I moved to dry cleaning services, industrial laundry, branding. The first thing I did was to rebrand the company. So obviously, every people say, "Well, Stefan, of course, you come from the branding industry. The first thing you do, you rebrand the whole thing." And what people don't know is that the rebranding was not made for the clients, because dry cleaning is a B2B company, has a maximum potential of 80 clients, cannot go much more than that, and already works with quite a few of them. So the rebranding was much more for acquiring new talents and showing them what the dry cleaning is actually. It's not a little family-owned business. It's one of the 5 biggest industrial laundries in the Southern Hemisphere, in Mauritius. So that's what the rebranding was all about. It was so people knew what it was, and in order to acquire new talents, obviously. So that was probably one of a good example of employer branding.
Yeah.
And so now moving to access in a new world and a new in the automotive industry, which I don't know, but I really like. I'm fan of all of that. So I'll try. But what I'll try to bring is actually the true and the leadership by culture and showing different ways of seeing things, trying to get rid of the respect, the integrity, and the excellence without, putting those words off the wall, not removing them. He's gonna remove all the respect out of just removing the words off the wall, and I think you get my point, and that's probably all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. My next question is for Varuna. Sun Life has been integrating their VPVs. We heard about the values. I wanted to hear more about what values means to you as part of the Sun Life culture.
I think, first of all, hi everyone. Krista mentioned in the first panel discussion about the raison d'être, our values. So, Sun Life is an interesting case study. I would like to share my views using Sun Life as a case study, because I've also worked for other companies, and I've always also led culture change in other companies. But what I've lived and experienced at Sun Life is quite unique. And when we started the project, we didn't even imagine this was what we were expecting. We knew that we did as every classic company would do, we did our audit on how we were perceived, and we also work out our vision, how we want to be perceived. So where we were and where we want to go was clear. Then there was a whole journey of projects, focus groups, all the classical methods to come up with your values. And I was a bit upset because I joined in 2017 and we worked on timeless memories and the set of values, and then I was supposed to lead again a new set of values and starting again. So I was not personally very convinced. I'm just disclosing everything and being very honest. And I was saying to François, I remember François is our CEO. So I was saying to François, but we need to talk about evolution, because all those people who've been working for this company, investing their energy and believing in those values that were communicated in 2018, now we're in 2021 and we're going to say that we're going to redo everything. And very often when you have change in leadership, you tend to re-question everything and you start reconstructing everything. So I was not very convinced. I was a bit scared about the impact on the morale of the employees, because I was listening to them, and a lot of them, because of the changes in leadership that happened before, were tired of changes. It was like, okay, yet another change, wait and see. But when we started to work on the values, with the approach that Krista mentioned in the morning, we came up with values which were very connected to how très human, mostly connected to individuals, to personal values. And I would like to say that when we talk about corporate values or corporate culture, I think that word corporate is the biggest problem. Because we're working with people, and people come with their emotions. So what created the magic at Sun Life was that the values that were chosen, the methodology that was chosen to work on the values, and the values that came out from the employees became our biggest strength, biggest motivation, and inspiration. The first day when we disclosed the values, we didn't work on any training program yet. There was nothing behind to make the values be a living factor in the company. The very first day that we started sharing the values, it was magical. Because I don't know if anyone knows, but I lost my team. Who can say what's the vision of Sun Life?
To see a world better than twice.
Yes, thank you. So it talks about kindness. Our values are...
That was a tricky test.
Don't say.
And our values are... Our values...
Dreams and thoughtfulness.
Love, dreams.
Love, dreams, and thoughtfulness. Well, I'm not advertising for Sun Life. I'm just, it's just that these values are so connected to people at individual level that when we launched it, it became very easy to feel a change, a shift in the vibe. So the first impact of the values were a shift in the vibe, in the energy. And this I wasn't even expecting as result. So we felt a change in the energy. It's all about emotion because people started to relate to those values and they were saying, look, we already practiced this, this is very dear to me, I can relate myself to these values. So from a very traditional corporate values like respect, integrity, excellence and all, we moved to human values, and it helped us because it's been 4 years now since we are living those values, and it's been a journey in which you have frustrations, challenges, you have some positive, very, you do your rebranding night, and it's so wow, so you have that very good feel factor effect, and then all of a sudden you realize that this is not being lived at all levels. Then you start talking about the generation gap, about the middle managers who are not able to translate those values into actions. And while doing the training, we saw the challenge of people felt as they were very human values connected. So everyone was feeling they were already living those values. So what transformation are they going to do? Because we wanted a transformation in our culture through those values. But the first impact was good feel factor, good energy, but no transformation. So when we started the training, then we started realizing that, and we had to work on different tacticals, let's say, and strategies to make it more concrete in the workplace. Because as inspiring as it may seem, it's as challenging to do. Because how do you apply love in your work? So that's why I talk about the methodology as well in the beginning, because how did we define love as a value? We said, we asked our employees, how would you like to feel at Sunlight? We would like to feel part of the family. So if you want to feel part of the family, then you should value love. Because in a family, there is love. How do you want your guests to feel? We want our guests to feel over the moon. So if we want our guests to feel over the moon, we need to value dreams. So this was the methodology used, and it helped us to instill those values later on a bit more naturally because of the methodology. So that was an important factor. And beyond the vibes and the energy that was created, we felt that we needed employees who were expecting something for them. So what's in for me? Okay, you're asking us to go beyond to please the guests, to make the guests happy. Faire client mari content. This is the very tagline in the hospitality sector. But what's in for us? Hard work. There's a shortage of labor, so we're doing a lot of overtime. We're talking about fatigue. And at the same time, there was all the discussions in the hospitality sector itself around work-life balance and well-being. And very difficult to provide the work-life balance in a 24/7 business where you're having labor shortage and you're in a service sector. So I would say, I don't know whether I'm answering to your question, but
Yes.
I'm sending my messages though. So the values help us to instill a bit the shift in mindset in terms of service culture. And the EVP, which is around the employer brand, helped us to realize that there is a need to be a shift in terms of employer mindset.
Yes.
So the VPBs, which are our values, led us finally to define our role and responsibility as an employer.
Very interesting. Thank you. Yes. My takeaway is just before, I think Hélène would like to say something. Then
Je voulais juste rebondir sur quelque chose que tu as dit, Varuna, et qu'on avait d'ailleurs discuté quand on préparait cette session ensemble. Tu as dit il y a des changements de leadership, et c'est vrai, à chaque changement de leadership, il y a un petit mouvement de je change un logo ou je change des valeurs. Mais en fait, moi, la question, c'est vrai que chaque leader arrive avec une personnalité, et la personnalité du leader influence en fait l'équipe exécutive, et c'est comme ça. Et quel est en fait, dans la réflexion autour des valeurs, c'est quelles sont les valeurs inconditionnelles sur du temps long et les valeurs qui sont sur un temps court. Quand je dis sur un temps long, c'est 15-20 ans, parce qu'il y a des valeurs inconditionnelles sur le temps long Ils sont presque 7 par un board, indépendamment de qui est le CEO ou qui est l'exécutif team. Et puis il y a des valeurs qui vont être plus cycliques, qui peuvent en fait être plus dynamiques sur des temps plus courts, de 5 ans, en fonction des cycles, en fonction du style de leadership. Et comment on assure en fait cet équilibre et que chaque CEO en fait ne vient pas jeopardize ce qui serait des valeurs profondes sur un temps long. Voilà. Et je pense qu'il faut qu'on fasse attention à ça dans nos organisations.
Ne pas toujours tout réinventer et s'appuyer aussi sur nos forces.
Ouais. Et d'avoir un board qui soit très clair sur quelles sont ses valeurs long terme, peut-être 3, 4, et puis accepter qu'il y aura des styles différents qui seront cycliques dans une organisation en fonction des gens qui la dirigent à Z.
Merci Hélène pour ce commentaire très, très important. Je pense que souvent on a un peu la fatigue du changement, comme Varunda disait, et les choses qui ne changent pas sont aussi une source de notre identité, de qui on est, de qu'est-ce qu'on veut laisser aussi derrière. Donc on n'a pas toujours besoin de tout changer, en effet. Alors, ma prochaine question for Manish. We're talking values. How about the execution of values and walking the talk of those values? And how to bridge the gap between the talk and the reality?
Some do have.
5 minutes, then Vidya.
So, at the end of the day, I will build on from what my colleague Stefan was sharing, that we have to wipe off values. And I kind of agree with that, that my belief is, again, not a revolution, but an evolution, that we should not call it values, but values in action. Why I say that is, more importantly, how do you spot that value in action? Whatever you define and are not just shared, what it means and how you can spot that in action when you're talking about love, because love can mean different things to different people. So, for me, it comes down to one key factor in the organization is leadership. Okay? And in that sense, we say culture is leadership. What that means to me is why people leave organizations, actually, amongst the top 3 reasons. Most of us know you have career opportunities, you have better pay, but more importantly also, people leave because of the manager, immediate supervisor. Yeah? So they move away from that. And so when it comes to leadership, the ability to walk the talk and to be the role model is essential, because if you look at it as human beings, we learn by modeling. So since as kids, we grew up by modeling our parents, our siblings, our family members, our friends. We were not told to do things, but when we were told, we would look at what people are doing and we would model it. And so that's why it's important in the whole element of adult learning that you model what you want to see. And so as leaders, what I mean leaders is everyone in the room is a leader, because you start by leading yourself. So the whole element, the name of the conference is Brand Within, and at the end of the day, leadership starts from within. You know? And change starts from within. And so as leaders, I think the way we can demystify how to create leaders at all levels, it doesn't have to be by position, nor by authority, it's all at all levels. This has been researched and developed by GE at the point in time, and one of the famous authors that I follow is Rancher. He talked about leaders at all levels. And in that, what happens is you can lead from multiple directions, and it's situational. So, and it starts with leading from within. So how do you, as a person, lead from within? By being clear on your strengths, on your purpose, on your values, and being more self-aware. Second, then, is how do you lead from the front? It can be at all levels, again. So lead from the front means how do you act as a role model? How do you show to your team to work with you what's the next step, and then get them to generate clarity in terms of the way forward? You also have them lead from the side. And lead from the side is how do you create an environment of collaboration, of teamwork, but also having the courageous conversations when it matters, and feedback. And the next direction is how do you lead from the back? And lead from the back, in that sense, means how do you act as a coach or a mentor and help people spot the talent in people and help them grow. And finally, the fifth direction, I would say, is how do you lead across? And is that different from lead on the side? Lead across means leading across generations, leading across cultures, and leading across different communities that you engage with. So it's a very simple way that you can demystify it and apply it. Now, And also, let's say when it comes to that element of leaders, one of the elements that we need to focus on is where we fall short when we define a strategy of this is our culture strategy, our values, and what we actually want. There's always a missing part between defining it, so shaping it, and then sharing it, is how you systemize it. The best organizations in the world have found a way to systemize it, included in 4 elements. That is, how do you make it through stories? We talked about people's stories in the morning. How do you create a sense of belongingness? So how do you create that sense of tribe where people feel proud to be part of that tribe? And that's a very basic human instinct. It's not the basic instinct that people know, if you think about it, but human instinct. So connectedness and belongingness. Then you have artifacts, the tangible elements, and the rituals. Rituals are the processes and practices that you need to focus on. So by systemizing it, the system takes over. If you go to how many of you have the opportunity to travel by Emirates? Yes? Business class in Emirates. Anyone? Yeah. You feel special when you go in business class in Emirates. Yes? And it's systemized in their process. That the person will come to talk to you, welcome back, sir, madam, and so on and so forth. So, and probably this is one of the most value-adding positions that airlines have. The flight person who comes to talk to you and engage with you and connect with you. So finally, for me, the litmus test when it comes to rationalizing all this of the values and helping the organization to live it is there's a test that it needs to pass when we define this. Is it clear? Right. So is it simple to understand? Is it connecting? So it doesn't just you get it. So let me give an example of clear. How we learned from it. A few years ago, many years ago actually, we designed value program, and agility was introduced as a value. And one of the feedbacks we got afterwards, thank you to Daniela for the feedback, by the way, is someone said at an operational level, said, hey, man, so, and we're talking about agility, so we didn't realize that, and that's feedback from the grassroots, and it's important for us then to see how we can adjust that. So make it clear and simple. Make it connecting, so that it doesn't just connect here, it connects here. More importantly, how you feel. Make it concrete, that is actionable, and also then make it credible, that is real and authentic. So that's for me. What I would share, I think I'm on the top.
Yes. Wow. Perfect timing. Thanks, Andy. Thanks. Very interesting. The leading from within is very, very meaningful. Many people often may tend to forget that it starts there. They focus on the external, but not from the inside. And also to go back to what Varuna said, that was very interesting, to not corporate culture, people culture. Those are very 2 key takeaways from your interventions. Thank you. Now my question for Vidya, who's been very patient. You believe the people are the brand. This is such a strong statement. What does this mean in the context of Mauritian work culture?
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for having me. Great to be here this afternoon. So first of all, I would say that culture, the reason we believe in culture, because it adds to the bottom line. At the end of the day, companies realize that the only way you can be successful, especially in a highly competitive world for talent and also acquisition of customers, you have to be best in what you do. And the only way you can be best in what you do is that you need to be competitive. And technology you can buy. You can buy a lot of processes, but you cannot buy the differentiation that people bring to your business. So the people is the real differentiator. In actual fact, this is the only appreciable asset you have in your company. Everything is depreciating. So on the basis of this, we took note a few years ago, just to kind of go back a little bit. Ceridian, in actual fact, was started in 1992. So we were very much a service-based organization. We were on mainframe delivering the service. And then we acquired a company in 2012 called Dayforce. The reason we acquired the company is because we wanted to accelerate the transition to the cloud business. Some companies try to do it internally. We felt that it was much more successful to do it or less risky to do it by acquiring. Probably at the time, the company who had the best workforce management module in the world. So we bought, now we inherited two cultures. So we have the Ceridian culture and then we have the Dayforce culture. The Dayforce culture is more futuristic, very much tech oriented. So we took some time to actually go back to the drawing board and said, how do we actually come up with a set of values that will reconcile the organization and make us become this high value organization to deliver exceptional service to our customers. So we transitioned from being a service organization into a product organization. So today we build products, just like Oracle, SAP, and Workday. These are the three, actually, our closest competitor. We are an ERP company. So the mindset of running a service-based organization, an all service-based organization, with the mindset of actually running a futuristic, high-value technology company was very, very different. So we put a lot of energy to actually go back into what the values that will help us transition and be successful. So we actually named those values our way. So this is how we do business. This is how we engage with our customers, with our people, and with the external world. And one thing that we actually said very openly is that in our company, employees come first, customers second. And customers, basically, we make sure that the employees deliver exceptional, unforgettable customer experience. But at the end of the day, if you don't get it right on your people side, you might as well forget it. Because at some point, somebody is going to take your market share. So that has been very much the philosophy on which we built our business. And going back to your question, Jennifer, is that today there is a lot of lip service out there. A lot of people talk about values, including CEOs, including senior executives. And when you watch them, what they say and how they do things, you see there's a disconnect. So I'm a firm believer, especially as you're the more senior you become in an organization, you become much more accountable to actually lead the talk. And we as leaders, we should be a living example of the values. In actual fact, for me, in my company, very often, I mean, we rebranded Ceridian to Dayforce last year. And when we went through this rebranding, a lot of people say, every year we need to put advert in the press, we need to put billboards, we need to do all this. And something I told them, we are the brand. When people meet you and talk to you, this is what they will know about what the company is. Because very often what happens is that you spend a lot of money through marketing, etc. And then when people meet the people who work for the organization, say, hey, that's a disconnect. Yeah, I heard what your CEO said, but that's not how you guys are working and how you're talking. I think the value should be internalized, it should be personified, and that you have to live it on a day-to-day basis. That's the only way it will stick. Because otherwise, what will happen is that we are in a highly competitive environment. In our business, if you're not growing by 25-30% year over year, you're dead. Because it's cloud company, we actually run our business through subscription. We sign a company, 100,000 employees, we get 100,000 subscribers overnight. So for us, this is essential, and we make sure that we drive this at all levels within the organization, because that's the only way you can be successful. Now, today, a lot of people thought culture is an intangible. You can't actually put your hand on it. But the culture is actually in the background, and it's like the air we breathe. When you don't have air to breathe, suddenly you realize there's a problem. The values is the glue that keeps the organization together. And I think this is something that, for me, it's tangible. And today you have a way of measuring it with a culture coherence quotient, CCQ, that companies today are able to measure the score that they come up with, how culturally aligned they are, be it from the CEO to the people on the front line. And world class, I think, is if you score like 90% or plus, you are considered as world class. Now, 75% of mergers and acquisitions fail. And the reason they fail is not because they didn't have the technology. The reason they fail is that there is misalignment between the two organizations trying to come together. So I think today there is a recognition and an increased awareness by the board and by the senior executive that we need to get culture right if we want to be successful in business. For me, at the end of the day, it's a business imperative. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Wow. Very interesting. I'd like to recap. What I'm going to suggest is to take the questions from the audience straight away, and I'll circulate the microphone. We'll have time for 1 or 2 questions. So I urge you, if you have questions, to ask them now.
Yep.
Go.
Hi, c'est une question pour tout le panel. Alors, est-ce que vous pensez, c'est par rapport aux valeurs, hein, est-ce que vous pensez qu'il y a des valeurs qui sont communes ou qui devraient être communes aux compagnies mauriciennes, particulièrement? C'est la question.
Moi, je
Okay,
pense que les employés, qu'est-ce que ça, enfin, je crois qu'on va recruter partout dans le monde. Donc je crois il y a des avantages à Maurice qu'il faut mettre en avant, mais je crois qu'il faut aussi savoir accueillir des collaborateurs du monde entier. Donc voilà, je dirais attention, en tout cas chez nous, il faut que nos collaborateurs étrangers se sentent accueillis. C'est pas toujours facile. Ouais.
Varuna, please. Okay, Vidya then.
Yeah, if I may, we are being in the global business for as long as I came back to Mauritius. So I worked 8 years I was in the UK for 8 years. I worked for 2 companies, one in Cambridge, one in London, one is in oil, one is in finance consulting. Came back to Mauritius, started a company in Madagascar, the first BPO company actually we started. So for all my career, I have actually worked for foreign companies. I've never worked for a local company. In my previous job, we were mainly focused on serving European customers, maybe about 8 countries in Europe. In my current job, it's primarily US, Canada, and now through acquisition, we have Asia Pacific, Australia, etc. So over 20 years ago, I realized how difficult it is for merchant companies to support a global business. It's how difficult it is to serve global clients. And one of the areas where we had the greatest difficulty is on cultural alignment. For those people who are familiar with the industry of business process outsourcing, etc., you will recall that about 25, 30 years ago, there was significant dollars spent in terms of educating people in India how to support an American customer base. Because we thought differently, we spoke differently, the expectation was different, the culture is so different. So we had to align. This is the power of globalization. So I think it's very difficult for us to say, okay, come work with us because this is how we work, guys. Yeah. I think we need to be aligned with the world, and increasingly, the whole world is coming almost the same, because whether you are serving North America or Europe or Asia Pacific from Mauritius, the expectation is that we are almost like English language. Yeah, English language is kind of the common business language in the world, and everybody's trying to learn it so that they can actually do business cross-border. So I think culture will be very similar, and I think if I may, just to finish off on one of when we did this cultural sensitivity analysis on Mauritius culture versus the culture of our customers expecting us to be aligned with, one of the challenges we saw with our culture is that we are not very direct communicators here. So we try to be very polite. When there's a problem, we don't actually tell the customer what's the problem, and then finally they discover and then we get upset. Unlike the Americans, which is very direct. Yeah, so that's one thing we had to fix. Second thing is in Mauritius, the problem we have is that time. Yeah, Mauritian time, yeah. Now, if you work with the Americans, the Mauritian time doesn't work. Yeah, you have to be on the dot. Deadline is a deadline. In Mauritius, yeah, they will forgive you if you're 5 days late, but an American customer or a European customer won't. So all of these things we had to analyze so that we make sure that we are at par with the culture that we serve. Now, there's one thing which I'll pick up on what Ravin said, and Ravin, thank you for being very open about this. In organizations today, in Mauritius especially, this is very strong, is political correctness. So you try to say things, although you believe you should have said something different, but you try to be politically correct. And I think we grow up like this because we don't want to kind of upset anybody. But I think leaders should stimulate the people to tell us what's wrong and not just pretend, yes, I agree with the boss all the time. Yeah, everything is fine. I think we have to be courageous enough. Yeah. Now I'll just close with this. When I was president of Business Mauritius, one of the biggest things I felt very uncomfortable with is that the government did not want me to say what's not working. Okay, and I felt very uncomfortable. That's not my nature. And as long as you tell them everything is fine, they're doing a great job, we're good. Yeah. But when you say, oh, there are so many problems we need to fix, suddenly, in Mauritius we don't do this. Yeah. And I think that's a danger because obviously we want to be the best. As a company, we will pay PwC, EY, BCG to tell us what we're doing wrong. Now you're getting for free. So I think we need to welcome feedback, and I think that's a problem with our culture. Thanks.
Thanks, Vidya. Very, very interesting indeed.
Can I add?
Yes, you can add.
I'll just tell you what I think we should unleash as values and culture, and what we should stop. I think we should have known for the realities. I think we should unleash that. We should unleash that, as opposed to box people, where you should. But I think we should unleash that, and I think that can across all industries and everywhere, and try to get the best out of what we want to do. I think what we should stop doing, checking it down. We're also very good at that, right? We could manage the farmers and stuff, or it's compliance, or it's good. So check it down. I think we should stop doing that. I think we're very good at that at Mauritius. We should stop doing that. I think we'll get better. Thank you.
Ça va être très court. 2 secondes, c'est juste qu'il y a deux mots qui ne marchaient pas très bien pour moi ensemble. C'est-à-dire que si on vient de dire que les valeurs doivent être vraies, doivent être, etc. Donc, vous voulez imposer, entre guillemets, des valeurs mauriciennes à toutes les compagnies across the board, ça ne s'ennuie pas. Les valeurs doivent être celles qu'on veut, et celles qu'on désire, et celles qui sont vraies. Et si elles sont imposées, c'est pas des valeurs.
Alors, peut-être juste une chose, et puis je laisse Manish dire. Pour moi, les valeurs mauriciennes ont leur place pour les entreprises qui veulent attirer des Mauriciens. Pour revenir à ce qu'on disait ce matin avec Brian, si votre différenciateur, c'est des valeurs mauriciennes dans l'entreprise, ça a du sens. Mais là, on parle à des entreprises aussi internationales où ça ne peut pas être le fondement unique, en tout cas. Ça peut être un peu ce que Hélène disait, les valeurs fixes et puis il y a les valeurs contextuelles. Il peut y avoir un mélange des deux parce qu'on est dans une identité mauricienne. Mais le mauricien correspond pas forcément à tous les métiers et toutes les entreprises pour lesquelles nous travaillons, surtout quand c'est une entreprise internationale qui doit être plus diversifiée. Donc, ça c'était juste une parenthèse et je passe la parole.
Je vais être court. Pour moi, it's not a value, but it's more a shared spirit. It's kind of an energy that connects all of us as human beings, is benevolence, la bienveillance. Je pense que c'est quelque chose d'extrêmement présent, Maurice, on ne parle pas. Je suis comme il y a... Thank you. So when is François Denis? Je parlais de bienveillance. So my key point is that bienveillance is how do you make things easier for others, how do you connect with people, but at the same time, être bienveillant ne veut pas dire ne pas être performant. Être bienveillant peut aussi dire être performant aussi. Voilà.
Et il y a des valeurs qui nous réunissent tous. Et c'est ça aussi qui est important. Il y a des valeurs qui cut across dans le healthcare, quel que soit le pays où on travaille. Il y a ce sens et ce souhait de travailler dans ce secteur.
Il y a juste quelque chose que je voulais rajouter, parce que j'ai partagé des valeurs très humaines et très universelles qui parlent peut-être un peu dans le pluriel. Et quand on est en train d'appliquer, tu parles de performance, moi j'ai witness, partager un performance review avec les senior managers où une décision qui a été prise dans la façon que les choses ont été faites, François a pu dire à la personne, but this is not kindness. Donc c'est de notre language aujourd'hui, notre business language. Au début, les équipes qui sont là peuvent témoigner, on peut aller à chaque fois on peut aller dans l'employee experience, what is the, well, you apply the thoughtfulness. Aujourd'hui, on ne parle même pas de ça, c'est naturel. C'est devenu quelque chose de naturel, on ne discute même pas. et les termes sont utilisés.
C'est le fondement des prises de
Le fondement,
décision.
whether it's positive feedback, when you receive, on dit ça c'est un Sun Life. Donc on disait cet employé, mais lui c'est un réel Sun Life. Donc il y a une identité à travers ces valeurs. Et des fois on me dit, l'X est mis dans mon Sun Life. Donc c'est techniquement encore en train de vivre ces valeurs. Donc this is the power of values when you are very connected to individuals. Donc
Thank you.
voilà.
Merci.
Merci.
Merci à tous les panélistes. C'était vraiment des insights extrêmement intéressants. Et avant que vous partiez, je vais juste demander s'il y a encore une question de l'audience.
Hi, thanks. I've witnessed that when people leave, some culture goes with them. And I'd like to know, how do you preserve it, or at least how do you make it lasting?
I think I mentioned it at a point in time that if you want to make your culture stick, you can't depend on champions, you need to systemize it. And it's a system which takes over. When you look at the best companies, be it Google, be it Emirates, all of them in their own industry, in their own way, they find ways to systemize it through four elements: stories, the concept of the tribe, the belongingness, artifacts, and more importantly, the last one, which are rituals. So how you ritualize your some of the key aspects of your culture, be it your people practices, be it how people are onboarded, how people are recognized, how you grow people, how you give feedback. All these are essential elements, which then give you elements to share stories about it.
And this will stay when the people will go, because the framework and the environment is like this. Many thanks to the panelists again. Many thanks to the audience for the questions.